Today we're getting ready for fall with some magical cozy mystery series. Stay tuned. Hi everyone! If you're new here, I'm Ashley and this is Cozy Mystery Tea Time. I'm a boy mom, a basset hound mom, a writer, a blogger, and I love cozy mysteries. Welcome! Today we're going to be talking about 5 magical cozy mystery series that I've been enjoying. Well, 4 that I've been enjoying and 1 that's on my to-be-read pile. And this is the time of year that I really want fall to happen, but I live in a southern state. I live in Tennessee, and we're in Memphis, and it is just hot here pretty much until Thanksgiving. September is not fall. I know those pumpkin spice lattes are out at Starbucks. I know that sweaters and cardigans and really cute fall colors are in all the clothing stores, but it is unfortunately still very much summer here. But I've got my favorite fall scented candle going. This is Autumn Wreath by Yankee Candle. It's got kind of an apple pumpkin spicy smell. So I've lit my candle. I'm pretending that it's fall here, and I'm thinking about spooky, witchy, supernatural cozy mysteries to get me ready for one of my favorite seasons, Halloween. So let's go. Okay, I've got my notes here so I don't forget. Okay, my first series, and I've mentioned this series before in some of my previous videos, has become one of my favorite series, and it's also opened my world up to one of my new favorite authors. And this is the Magical Bookshop Mystery Series by Amanda Flower. Now, Amanda Flower, this is my first book to read by her. I will most definitely be getting more of her work. She's an Agatha award-winning author, and it really shows. She's so talented. Her characters are amazing. Her world building and her, just her character development are so advanced. And they're rich and they're complex. They're funny. I've really been impressed with her work. I think she's got several series. I think the one I'm most interested in is probably, she does like an Amish candy shop series. That sounds interesting to me. That might be my next series to read from her. Okay, so the Magical Bookshop series stars Violet. And Violet is a PhD student in Chicago. And after high school, Violet kind of ran away from her hometown. She has some dark secrets that have not been revealed at the beginning of the book in her hometown, and she doesn't want to go back. She's a PhD student, she's studying literature, and her hope is to become a college professor somewhere very far away from her hometown of Cascade Springs, which is by Niagara Falls. Well, her grandma Daisy has other ideas. Her grandma calls her and says, I'm so sick, you have to come, you have to help me. So of course Violet gets in her car, she drives all night to get to her grandma. When she gets to her town and she gets to her grandma's bookshop, she finds that her grandma is completely fine. She's not sick at all. Her grandma has tricked her into coming back to town. The reason she's tricked her is her grandma wants to retire from running her family's bookstore. And she wants Violet to take up the cause and run the bookstore for her. That's kind of like a next generation passing the bookshop on. Well, obviously it's a cozy mystery, so she gets wrapped up in a murder and kind of gets stuck in town. She also dredges up a lot of her ghosts from her past, which is an interesting storyline in itself. And the bookshop itself is actually magical. I don't want to, a lot of these cozy mysteries that I'm talking about today, if I say too much, then I'm going to be giving spoilers out, so I don't want to go too far. But she has the choice, am I going to leave and kind of escape these painful memories of my hometown, or am I going to stay and become what's known as the caretaker of a magical bookshop? So that is that series. I've really enjoyed it. I'm on the second book right now, and it's still just as fascinating as the first book. So that's great. Okay, my second favorite series with a magical theme is the Witch City Mysteries. This is by Carol J. Perry. And we find a woman named Lee Barrett. She's moved back to her hometown, which is Salem, Massachusetts. And we all know Salem is known as Witch City for its historical values with witches in America. Lee wants to be a journalist, and she wants to be a television journalist. So she moves back to her hometown so that she can interview for the local news station. Unfortunately, when she gets there, though, the only position available is the host of like a call-in psychic horror movie night, late night television. And the only reason that spot is open is because the former host was murdered. So she takes the job because she's desperate, and it's actually pretty funny. She has to dress up in kind of like a headscarf fortune teller costume and go on TV, and people call in, and she's got to pretend to read their fortune. So it's really funny. What happens though is she starts to actually see real life events in the crystal ball that's one of her stage props. So she starts to think, am I going crazy? Am I actually a psychic? And along the way, she uses these newfound abilities to solve murders. It's the perfect Halloween read because it's set in October in Salem, Massachusetts. It's got some witch elements, it's got some supernatural elements. It would be the perfect book to pick up right now if you're really wanting to get in the mood for Halloween. Okay, the next series is one that I can recommend a million billion times because it's truly one of my I know I just said that about the Magical Bookshop, but Magical Bookshop and this one are just up there for me with like best cozy mysteries ever. And that's the Charmed Pie Shop Mysteries by Ellery Adams. So good. So good. And if supernatural, if this theme is not your thing, I would actually recommend this one because it's got a lot of mythical creatures, so it's not just ghosts or witches, which not everyone loves, but it's calling on, Greek myth and, different ancient mythical characters. And it's just really interesting. This book, okay, it stars Ella Mae LeFay. Now, Ella Mae, I know this is like a running theme with cozies that the character like runs away from her hometown and then she's got to be forced back to come to her hometown again. And again, this is another one just like that. Ella Mae LeFay is in culinary school in New York City, and she's living her big, fast-paced city life. And she finds her husband cheating on her in a very funny way. Cheating is never funny, but this is funny, and I'm not going to spoil it for you. So anyway, her life blows up. And what does she have to do? She has to go back and live with her mom. Her mom lives in a town called Havenwood, Georgia. And it's an adorable, picturesque little town in rural Georgia. She has to go live with her mom and her 3 aunts. Now, her biggest dream was to own her own bakery. And her aunts and her mom help her achieve that dream, and so they open up this bakery, and she's making pies, and everyone in town comes and eats at her bakery, and is just going crazy over her pie. Something weird happens. Every time someone eats one of her pies, they act a little strange. And she realizes along the way, whatever emotion she is feeling while she's making the pie, whoever eats the pie kind of absorbs that emotion. So if she's feeling in love when she makes the pie, the person eating it is going to feel in love. Or if she's feeling really stressed, the person eating it is going to feel really stressed. So she starts to, throughout the book, discover that she does have some sort of power, some sort of ability that's magical. And again, this is another time when I'm not going to give away spoilers because this story unfolds so well, and the little clues and foreshadowing about who's magical, what is magical, those elements are done so well in this story. So I want you to go read it. But it's so well written. I love it. Okay. My next series is the Retired Witch Mysteries. This is by Joyce and Jim Levine. I don't know if they're brothers or siblings or if they're married. But either way, isn't that so cute? I wish I could, maybe one day when I'm retired, I'll write cozy mysteries with my husband. Who knows? Okay, so this series stars 3 witches, Molly, Elsie, and Olivia. And they're getting older, and they're finding it harder and harder to run their curio shop, and they're finding it difficult to do spells. Their magical ability is kind of fading. And they know that it's time to retire. But to do so, they're going to have to find 3 witches, 3 magical people who don't know they're magical yet, and train them to be the new witches who run the shop. Before they can do this, Olivia is murdered, and their spell book, their pivotal spell book, is stolen, presumably by the murderer. So they've got to, find out who murdered Olivia and also find the spell book. And they end up coming across some really dark magic in their town and having to fight against that. The witches themselves are so sweet and cute, kind of in a Miss Marple kind of way. I love the different take on a witch. Usually we see a 20 to 30-year-old woman with beautiful skin and beautiful hair, and she's got, a 25-inch waist and da-da-da-da. And all that's great. I love that too. But I like that someone's taking it in a different direction, and it's a really enjoyable read. Okay, now for the one that I haven't actually read yet, but is on my to-be-read pile, and that is the Smithfield Fairy Mysteries. It's by Karen Kaufman, and this mystery series stars Kate Brewer. And from what I've read, Kate is living in a small town in Maine, which, by the way, nothing wrong with Maine. I love Maine. It's beautiful there. It's not as hot as Tennessee right now. But why is every cozy mystery set in Maine? Why? Have you ever read a cozy mystery set in Montana? If you have, leave it in the comments below. I'd love to check it out. Okay, so Kate is living in a small town in Maine. She's bored with her ordinary life, and an elderly neighbor asks her to help him solve an old murder mystery that has since been retired by the police. No one wants to solve it. No one can solve it. Could she help him? So she does. And along the way, he is talking to her about the fairies. And she just thinks he's, maybe a little old and maybe kind of losing it a little bit. But it turns out that the fairies in their town are actually real. And one of them becomes a recurring character that becomes like her sidekick. So I'm really curious to check this one out. I've never read one where like a little fairy is going to be, a detective. Sounds cute. Sounds interesting to me. Okay. Well, what are your favorite magical cozy mysteries? I know I haven't covered them all. Leave them in the comments below. A thumbs up is always really appreciated. And thank you so much for joining. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.